And new at 5, the preliminary hearings for Joseph Bonner and Cederick McMillian were this morning. The two are at the center of a controversial cemetery in Pritchard. Our Toy Thornton joining us from the newsroom with the details on this. Toy, this was not an easy decision for the judge.
It wasn't, Lenise. The judge found just enough probable cause to send the case to a grand jury, but defense attorneys say it's going to be hard for the prosecution to win this one. Joseph Bonner and Cederick McMillian, the two men at the center of a controversial case, standing before a judge today. Bonner in civilian clothing, McMillian in jail uniform. This after an investigation carried out by the Mobile County Sheriff's Office into claims that people were improperly buried in Heritage Memorial Gardens Cemetery. McMillian, CEO of Heritage Funeral Home, and Joseph Bonner, former funeral director, both face abuse of a corpse charges.
I think the judge was clearly indicated that there's big questions as to any involvement Mr. McMillian may have in association with abuse of a corpse.
The prosecution arguing that vaults promised to families are actually grave liners that were placed improperly, allowing water into them. Detectives say families were charged $1,500 for the vaults. Bonner's attorney argued the prosecution didn't have enough evidence to prove Bonner was responsible, also calling into question the standard the claims are based on. Dennis Nisley, who represents McMillian, says his client wasn't directly involved.
He was simply the person that was had control over the funeral itself and nothing to do with the manner in which these people were placed in the ground, which resulted in the abuse of the corpse, if there was any.
Nisley also stated that McMillian is only CEO of Heritage Funeral Home as a ceremonial position since he was hired as pastor of New Birth Church, which owns the cemetery and funeral home. Nisley says the charge of abuse of a corpse is bizarre and doesn't fit this case.
We're using a criminal statute of abuse of a corpse, of intentionally abusing a corpse. Now, I don't think the Smith family or anybody thinks that Cederick McMillian intentionally abused a corpse. If there's been a defective device by which he was placed in the ground or apparatus or wherever it might be, yes, there may be a civil complaint about that, but this is not criminal conduct.
And once again, this case is now in the hands of a grand jury. Meanwhile, McMillian remains in jail for violating his probation on sex offender charges. Live in the newsroom, Toy Thornton, Fox 10 News.